this video, we are going to learn about instancing and how to create multiple copies of an object really quickly. When you try to copy an object in Maya, what you would do is you would go hit Control D for duplicate, and then you have a second copy of your object. You can see it in the outliner, and you can move this up, and it's exactly the same as your original object. If you go into vertex mode or edge or face and change anything for the new object, it does not affect your original object. So these are not connected in any way. But sometimes when you're modeling things that have a lot of copies that all need to look the same or at least very similar, you would want these shapes to be connected so that you can control them at the same time, even after duplicating. And to do this, we can use duplicate special. I'm going to delete my copy, and the shortcut for duplicate special is Control Shift D, but usually you would want to customize this to get what you need. So Edit and Duplicate Special is the menu you need to go to and click on the options for Duplicate Special. At the default, this is what the settings are, and you can immediately see that you can create a certain number of copies. So it's not like duplicate where you just get one copy. In this case, let's say we create 6 copies, and you can apply that. At the default, it just creates the 6 copies right on top of each other. You could customize this further by adding a translation, rotation, or scale value. These boxes just stand for X, Y, and Z. So let's add a y-axis. So the y-axis is the axis that is pointing upwards, the green one. So I can type in maybe a number here. Let's type in 2 here and apply. So now it creates 6 copies, and they're all translated on the y-axis by 2 units. Maybe 2 is a bit much. Let me reduce that, and let's try applying that again. So now we have 6 copies, all translated 1 unit, and it works perfectly well. But in this case, duplicate special is not really doing what we wanted. These copies are still not connected. So let's delete them. So I'm undoing until I delete all the copies. There is one more setting that you need to set so that all of these are connected to each other, and that is the instance setting. So if you set it to be an instance, then all your versions of the object will be connected to each other, because an instance basically is a copy of the object that is not really its own object. It is just an entity that is connected to that main shape. So I'm going to create an instance and group it under a new group so that all my objects are in a new group, and I'm going to hit apply. And now you have these multiple instances, and if I go to vertex mode, you can now control that shape through modeling any one of these shapes. So it does not matter which instance you model on. You just model on one of them, it will affect all of them. And this is affected in all the component modes. So if you're in edge, you're in vertex, you're in face, any component mode you're on, it is affected by instances. And I can edit it this way, but if I go into object mode and I move these around, I can still move them as separate objects. So in object mode, they are not connected. I could even select one of these and animate them. So I'll set a keyframe here, set a keyframe here, and animate this. And if I play back the animation, it's only affecting that one object. In object mode, they are separate entities, but in component mode, you can still model. You could even extrude these. So if I select this and extrude face, it will extrude that same face for all of them. And in this connection is maintained until you break it. So this is a great way to model all these objects at once. You will see that the UVs are also connected for this object. So if I select one of these instances and I unfold, it unfolds all the UVs. If I scale this down, it scales all the UVs. And if I select any object, you'll see that they have the same UVs. If I select all of them, select the UV shell and hit layout, it doesn't really lay them all out as separate pieces. They're all one. So any textures that you apply to this, all of these will have the exact same textures. We'll see how to break this after we use the next method for instances, but keep this in mind that whenever these objects, as long as they're still connected, they will have the same UVs and the exact same textures. Now let's look at radially connecting these objects. So when you have objects like maybe a fan or a rotating chair, which you need to all have pieces around a central point, the first thing we need to do is create that central point. And the central point does not need to be a part of your model. It is mostly a reference object that you will use to place your pivot point. So I create that central object, and let's say we're creating the blades of a fan. So I'm going to create my original blade. So let's say this is my original blade. And in this case, I need to set a custom pivot so that I can rotate my objects around that pivot. So I need this blade to be maybe copied 5 or 6 times, let's say 5 for a fan. And it needs to rotate, all the copies need to basically be rotated around this circular shape. So kind of like that, you need to have multiple copies. So let's select that original object first, and let's set our custom pivot. And that custom pivot is going to be at the center of this cylinder. So I hit D and I align it to that vertex, and I'm going to go in and edit that custom pivot so that it does not affect any other object. And now this blade will rotate around this cylinder. So now to create the duplicates, what we need to do is we need to go to our duplicate special options. We're going to set the translation to 0. In this case, we just want to rotate the object. Set your translation to 0, and let's see which direction we want to rotate it. So for us, it is the Y direction. And then once we do that, we need to set the rotate value. So we're rotating along Y, which is this box. And essentially, the rotate value here, if you wanted to rotate in a circular fashion, is 360, which is the degrees, the number of degrees that a circular shape has, divided by the number of copies that you're creating. So in this case, it would be 360 divided by 5, which is 72. And set that number in here and hit apply. And now you have created multiple copies of this, this object. And you'll notice that you have 2 copies in this area. That's because we've rotated this by 360 degrees, and that just creates an additional copy in the original location. You could just delete your original objects and just have the group here. And once you do that, you will be able to edit these instances in the way that you want to create your final object. If you would like to break these connections of instances, so even if you delete the history, so even if you select everything here and go to edit, delete by type history, these instances will still be connected to each other. So if you need to break them, you need to combine these objects together, and that instantly breaks the instances. Before you combine, I would go into any one of these, unfold the UVs, make sure you have the UVs that you want for this, and only then do you break the instance, because then you already have your UVs. So I do this when I want to assign different textures to these objects. So if I want, so you know that for instances, the textures will remain exactly the same on all of these 5 instances. So if I want them to look different, then I would combine these. So what you have to do is select all your objects. Let's not select this, and go to mesh and combine. And that'll instantly break the instances. You could leave this as a singular object, or you could separate it out, but combine it and delete the history to make sure that everything is gone. So edit, delete by type history. And once you do that, you can also, you don't really need these groups because they're just empty groups. If you deleted the history, you should be good, but combine them. Let's delete those groups. And Now all your UV shells are still on top of each other, but you could select all of them by dragging and selecting and layout, and now you have these separate UV shells.